Hi everyone, Amber here from Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited. I am doing a tutorial for one of my favorite patterns. It is the H2O to go from Linds Handmade. So thank you so much, Linds, for allowing me to feature your pattern on my channel. This is one of my favorite bags that I make. I've made a few and I love it as written. It is a water bottle holder. It holds, I can put like two 20-ounce bottles in, or like a larger one. But what I love the most about it is that this makes a great bag for like a short hiking trip, or I love taking it to theme parks because I can throw my water in, and then in the front pocket, it's large enough. I can put my keys, I can put a couple cards in that I need, and there's a slip pocket back here. And on this side, both of them do hold my cell phone. So I just think this is such a cool bag. It is super convenient, but I do think a lot of people get intimidated. So like you often see hacks being done to this with like a square bottom, or like just a zipper pocket across, not a gusseted one like this that really opens up. And then people are like, oh, well, I can't fit much in it. So I really think the pattern as written is truly ideal. And I wanted to show you some tips and tricks that I do to make it a little bit easier, and maybe you won't be so intimidated by it. I saw on a domestic, so I have used a water resistant canvas from my shop. It has the PU coating on it, not the thicker PVC. And I've lined it with a ripstop. This ripstop is just a solid color from Joann's, and I have also used a zipper pull and zipper tape from my shop. It does have the circular bottom. So some of the things that I kind of walk you through are doing the zipper without snipping into it, and some steps that I take to really make sure that I don't get those wrinkles. The bottom really throws off people, but you're gonna see in my video that one of the things that I love about this is very forgiving, that even if your seam allowance like wiggles a little bit, it can still come out really looking nice. And also, Linds does have full tutorials for all her patterns on her YouTube channel. So I'm going to link them below, because she does go in depth and they're amazing. But I just love making this bag so much, and I really wanted to feature it on my channel. So I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or reach out on any of my social media. And if you do enjoy the video, I would love if you subscribed or give it a thumbs up. It does help my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. So enjoy. I have all the pieces cut out for my H2O to go. For the exterior, I am using the Turtle water resistant canvas from my shop. And I had added a layer of fusible fleece to it. And for the lining, I am using a ripstop. It's extremely thin, but I don't mind that my H2O to goes do not have like a lot of structure. I don't mind if they like squish down and stuff. So normally I use a waterproof canvas, but I'm going to try the ripstop this time, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. So I have my exterior and lining. This is the front pocket and lining, our zipper tabs. For the bottom here, I did use fusible fleece, but I also put a layer of Peltex underneath just to give it a little bit more sturdiness, and have my lining. This will be the slip pocket. Instead of making it one big piece that you fold in half, and I didn't want to lose part of this print, so I have just cut two pieces and added a seam allowance. So I'm going to sew them together to create my slip pocket. We have our card slots, the card slot backing, and then the sides of the card slot. And I also, it's recommended a 1.5 inch wide strap. I'm going to do a 1 inch strap, and I am going to make it a double-sided strap by using the water resistant canvas on one side, and then this orange seatbelt webbing for a pop of color underneath. And I have my size 5 zipper here, cut to the length given in the pattern. I'm using the green offered in the shop. so that way I can use my green turtle pull. And because I'm making a 1-inch strap instead of the 1.5, I have 2 D-rings, a slider, and 2 snap hooks, all in the 1-inch size. So these are all the materials that I'll be using to make the H2O to go. And here I have my tools and materials. I'm going to use glitter clips. I like to use Tex 35 from Wizardry Stitchery. This is their candy corn colorway. I do use it in both the top and the bobbin on my domestic machine, and it works perfect. I'm using a 9014 Microtex needle. I have a lighter. I have a silver marking pen, a chalk marking pen, and a blue water soluble. Depending what I need to mark, I use either of them or all 3. I have a pair of snips, a seam ripper stiletto combo, and a little ruler. If I use any other tools while I'm working, I will let you know. All right, so our first step is I have my zipper cut to the correct size, and we need to add our zipper pull and sew on our tabs. So definitely make sure that you put your pull on first. I just open up my zipper tape. I use my hands. You can use that. I usually put it on the right hand side first because I'm right-handed. Try to balance it on the top and then push it on. But that took a lot of time and practice to get used to. So you can use like a zipper jig or a fork, anything to help you put the pull on. So once it's on, we need to add the tabs. So I have my lining and I am going to put it right side facing up. It's really hard to tell. They both have like the little checks on it. So this side looks a little bit more raised to me, even though you don't feel it. So I'm going to use that as the correct side. So we are going to put our lining tabs right side facing up. We're going to align our zipper on it with the teeth facing up, and then we need to put our zipper tabs, the exterior, right side facing down. And so I have a directional print, so I need to make sure that I'm putting it the correct way, because what we're going to do is we're going to end up sewing, and then this is going to fold open. So when this folds open, I want to make sure my turtle is going the correct way. So definitely be mindful if you have directional fabric. You could also baste the lining on first and then the exterior. I like doing that when it's the entire zipper, but this is just such a small part of the zipper. I'm going to sew the lining and the exterior at the same time. And so you're just going to do the same thing for the opposite side. Again, I'm making sure that when this flips open, my turtle and fish will be going the correct way. And so again, I'm just lining up the edge. If you're using a nylon or plastic zipper, you might want to use a lighter to heat seal the edge of your zipper. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew across each side at the given seam allowance in the pattern. All right, so I'm at the machine and I have just stitched along both sides of my zipper tab. So now we are going to fold this open so the wrong sides of our fabric are wrong sides together. And I am just going to top stitch across the top. I use my regular presser foot and the little oval inside. I use that to guide where my top stitch is. And then I'm just going to repeat for the other side. It's a little difficult because there's not a lot of space, so trying to backstitch with the zipper on a domestic machine creates a little bump there. But it's going to get sewed into the seam allowance, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so now I just have my finished zipper. I have it top stitched on the sides. I have marked the center of the zipper. I used the blue water soluble for that. And I have my exterior zipper pocket, and I have the center marked with a chalk line. So now I want excuse me. I want my zipper closing to the left. So I am going to move that a little bit past center, and I am going to put it right side facing down. So the teeth are down, and I am going to take that blue mark and line it up with the center of the pocket. Now, in the instructions, Lindsay tells you to do some little snips about 1/8 of an inch into the zipper tape. I don't like to do that because it could possibly fray. If you do that, I do recommend taking a lighter after and kind of like singeing it so it seals up and melts the edges. But what I do is I just am going to ease it around and do my best sewing it, not to get any ripples. So if you do snip into it, it does help it, but I avoid that. Okay, and so once I have my top center clipped, I am going to line up the edge, the zipper tab on the side with the bottom edge, and put a clip there to hold it into place. I'm trying to keep it as straight as possible, as lined up with the edge as possible. And now I'm going to do that for the other side. And once we have those clipped into place, we're now going to clip the rest of the zipper, and we're going to ease it around the corners. So the corners here is where you would want those snips. But what I do is I just try to line it up the best I can. You could use a whole bunch of clips, pins. You probably could even staple this part if you wanted. Because we're going to baste it into place. So I just use a whole lot of pins. And when I'm sewing it, I just really take my time and try to straighten it out so I don't get those ripples. And so I'm going to do the same thing for this other side here. And then I'm going to take it to the machine and just baste around the edge at about 1/8 of an inch. As I'm basting, I am going to move my zipper pull out of the way. If you don't move it, that's one of the reasons that you'll get a bubble in your, or a wavy zipper as one of the possible causes. And I actually even move it when I'm clipping the zipper into place as well, because I even find that if you don't do that while you're clipping it, it does warp the edge of the zipper tape, and you may end up with that wavy zipper. Okay, so again, I'm just easing this in here, and now I'm going to take it to the machine and baste stitch all the way around. All right, so I have just baste stitched all the way around my zipper, and you can see that there's no wrinkles as of right now because I really took my time. If we were to fold this out, it's all like really nice. There's no ripples in the zipper tape. So I'm very happy with how that looks. So now we need to make our slip pocket. So in the pattern, she has you cut it the full length and then fold it in half and top stitch. Because I wanted to use the exterior fabric and the lining, I cut them, I cut them in 2 separate pieces with my seam allowance added in. So for me, I'm going to put them right sides together and stitch along the top at the given seam allowance, or whatever seam allowance you're going to use if you're cutting it in half. Once I stitch this across, then I'm going to fold it open and put it wrong sides together and then top stitch. So you can do it either way. I just think that if you have a directional fabric, you don't really want your lining part upside down. I also think that the exterior fabrics tend to be a little bit more expensive. So it's just another way that you can also save some fabric by using a lining. So I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to stitch across the top, and then I'm going to open it and top stitch it. So we have our slip pocket. I have sewed it together, top stitch along. It's a little bit wider of the top stitch. You could do it smaller if you want. I just follow what was in the pattern. So now that we have our slip pocket, we are going to put it on our lining piece. So this is going to be the lining that goes onto the back here. So we have our lining piece. The lining is right side facing up, and I'm going to put my slip pocket on, also right side facing up, and clip it into place. And then I'm going to base stitch it into place down both sides. I'll probably go across the bottom too. So I'm going to base stitch all 3 sides, leaving this top slip pocket open. So now I have my finished slip pocket lining piece. So I also have marked the center of this lining. And now I need my original piece that we started with the zipper. So now I'm going to put these right sides together. So my turtle fabric is facing my turtle fabric, and our zipper tape is going to be sandwiched in between. So I'm lining up my top center first and clipping it into place. And I'm going to put a couple clips just to hold it, because the ripstop can be a little slippery. And then I'm going to line up these bottom corners and clip them into place. And then I'm going to clip all the rest. So you can see where the zipper is like bulging a little bit. So I'm just going to take my time. It's going to be a little bit tricky with the zipper pull. I'm going to try to move it as I'm sewing. Since it's not locking, I can slide it. But you might not be able to move it, but I think our seam allowance is small enough that it should be okay. And so as I'm clipping this, I'm really making sure that I'm pushing my zipper tape in, because if I don't, you can see, like right now, if I clip this side, it's going to bulge, and you can see that it's already wrinkling. So it's really important as you're sewing and as you're clipping, you go slow and try to push that zipper tape in. And that will help you not get those wrinkles in your zipper tape. And especially because I did not put the little snips into the zipper tape to help ease it around. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Once I have this clipped, I am going to take it to the machine, and you are going to stitch at the given seam allowance all the way around, leaving this bottom part open. We're going to have to turn it through here. So do not sew along the bottom. You're going to do all 3 sides going all the way around at the given seam allowance. All right, so we have just stitched all the way around at a 1/4 inch. When I got here, I unclipped to move my pole out of the way, and you can see that this really is a lot lower. Like, it fell almost all the way down. I think when a lot of people make this pattern, they get really upset if like there's a wrinkle or it's not perfectly straight or perfectly lined up. The pattern is very forgiving, so don't feel bad if something is a little bit wrinkled. It might end up okay. And in this case, like, it is sewn there. Like, the stitching that I see right here is like a basting stitch from before. So I'm going to turn this right side out and see how it looks. If it's caught and sewn, I'm not worried about it, because we're top stitching and it's going to add another line of stitching there. And this isn't going to get pulled on in the sense of, like a D-ring or anything. So if you have little imperfections in your sewing, don't get upset about it. So we're going to turn it inside out. It can be a little bit tricky, especially if you use thicker materials. The water-resistant canvas is the PU coating, so it's not quite as thick. If it was the waterproof, I definitely would use like a blow dryer or something to help me turn this. So I'm just pulling, and I'm actually pulling on my zipper to help really straighten it out. And so you can see at the top is where I had that, it was super close. But on this side, there's no wrinkle in the zipper tape and it's completely caught. There's no opening here. So I'm not going to stress about that. And on the back side, it's the same thing. If I'm looking from the back, I have my nice slip pocket here and my whole lining is caught. So even though it looked like, oh no, I really messed up, my lining didn't catch, it caught enough that it's going to be fine. So now I am going to flip this so it's right side facing up. We're going to top stitch around here on the inside. And so when I do that, I like to fold my zipper tape up like this. I find that it sits flatter and works better on my machine. And we are just going to go all the way around and top stitch the inside of this pocket. And you can also top stitch across the bottom if you want and seal up that bottom pocket. And I'm going to do that as well. All right, so I have just taken my time and top stitched all the way around the inside. I think it looks great if you poke it back and look from the inside. I'm super happy with it. If for some reason like your bottom shifted and your tabs are a little bit shorter or a little bit longer, you can trim them so they are even. Or if they're off just by a little bit, you can also, that would be like taking care of in the seam allowance. So again, there I wouldn't worry so much. So I'm really happy with this. I'm going to set it to the side because now we are going to do our card slots. So now it's time to make the card slots. So I have it already marked out, all the measurements. Lindsay does recommend maybe using 2 different colors. I just used chalk. You don't want to draw your lines all the way across because we're folding on them and bringing them up. And if you put it all the way across, you're going to see them. I like chalk because I can erase them even if it's in the seam allowance only. So if we're starting at the top, there is a measurement that we are folding at and we are folding it to the back. So I've already marked that and it's already folded to the back. This is because it forms another slip pocket. So this is going to be like the lining. So now starting at the top, we have our first marks. The second set of marks, we are pinching at them. So I'm lifting up my fabric, pinching at the mark, and bringing it up to that first set of marks that we have that are visible. And if you have like quilting cotton, I really recommend pressing it. I'm using waterproof canvas for this that has the PVC backing. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to clip this to kind of hold it in place for right now. Okay, so, and actually underneath these clips, there's another line. We need to make sure that those are visible. So I just adjusted it. I'm going to skip that line. I'm going to go down to the next one. This is our pinch line. So again, we're pinching on that. So our back is right sides together. Sometimes I like to put a ruler behind to make sure they're straight. And we are bringing it up to the next set of lines. And I'm making sure that I'm keeping my sides straight, because that will help me make sure that my card slots are straight across. And again, I'm clipping it, but I just need to be mindful because the clips are small and I put it over that next marking. Okay, so now I'm going down further again, pinching, bringing it up. And you might need to fold this. You might notice that your fold line is not perfectly straight and you may need to adjust it. That's okay. Do whatever adjustments that you need. Okay, so now we have our last pinch line and bringing it up. And I am just going to clip that again to hold it. And we're not quite done yet. We are not going to just sew down the sides, even though we have our card slots formed. So you could take a little ruler and just check to see if you wanted that each of these card slots are the same distance away from each other, just to make sure you folded it. You also want to make sure that they look straight. I'm really happy with mine. So what I'm going to do is I like to top stitch across all of the card slots, and that is recommended. So I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to top stitch along this top part here that forms that slip pocket in the back. And then I'm going to take off these clips and I'm going to fold this back. So that way it leaves only my card slot exposed. And I'm going to do that one at a time. And I'm also going to stitch along each card slot top. So you want to make sure that you're folding it out of the way. If you don't, you're going to sew your card slots sewed together, and you won't be able to fit anything inside. The other thing that you might want to do, I'd have to grab a card, but before you sew anything, you might want to slip a card in and just make sure that it fits correctly and everything looks okay. So I'm going to bring that to the machine and I'm going to top stitch along all 4 card slots and the top here. All right, so I have just top stitched across each of the card slots. This is what the back side looks like. So I am just going to base stitch all 3 sides together. Your bottom should line up evenly. If it doesn't, it's just because your folds are probably off by a tiny bit. You could trim it so the bottom is even. All right, so we have just completed our card slots. This is the back, this is the front. So now we need our card slot backing, and we are just going to align that. And if you want to take a ruler, just in case your card slots have shifted, and measure down just to make sure it's the same distance. And I'm just going to clip that to hold it. And we are going to go base around all 3 sides to hold this in place. And have my completed card slot panel here. So you can see that creates like a nice slip pocket in the back of those card slots. And so now I have my side card slot panel. So I have my right side and my left side. I'm going to line up the edge, and if you're using directional fabric, make sure it's aligned. And I'm going to put them right sides together and match up the side. Just clip them in place, and we're going to take them, I'm going to clip both of them at the same time. We're going to take it to the machine and sew at the given seam allowance. And then, kind of like what we did with the zipper tabs, I am going to fold them open and then top stitch at along the side card slot panel side for each of these. So again, take it to the machine and sew down each side at the given seam allowance, open it up, and top stitch. All right, so we have just added our sides and top stitched them down each side. So now there is a pattern piece that we are going to place over this, and then we are going to trim. So if these are not like perfectly even or anything, don't stress about it, because we are going to end up cutting this a little bit smaller. I don't want to show pattern pieces on camera, so I am going to trim it down off camera. Okay, so I have just trimmed down this card slot piece using the pattern template. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm grabbing our exterior, and I already have my center marked here, and I'm going to need my front pocket again. I'm going to open up my zipper because it makes this part easier, and we need to basically clip this into the center. So how we're going to do that is I have my center mark here in blue still, and I have my center mark here in chalk. So I'm going to line them up so the teeth are right side facing down. So it's easier for me to just flip my pocket up. So the teeth are down on top of the exterior fabric right side facing up. And I am going to clip in the center. And so again, we're going to take our time clipping this because we're going around this corner. So, and again, I'm not clipping into my zipper tape like with scissors, like making little snips. So I'm taking my time, making sure that it is lined up. My zipper tape is not wrinkly. And as I'm doing this, this exterior piece is going to naturally kind of flip up as I'm clipping, just because of the curve. I find it easier just to clip from the center and work my way down one side and then the next. They should, I mean, you could clip the bottom together and then kind of like ease this in. Sometimes I just do it and then trim off the bottom. So either way, you're not going to lose that much if we do it that way. So I'm just going to keep going the way that I am doing, where I am putting the zipper all the way down. So you can see there's like a little bit of a difference. On this side, let me see how it works if I do the bottom first. We'll see if it's enough to ease in. Sometimes you can ease in a zipper. If it is, I recommend you doing that. And other times, look, I didn't trim this all the way. Other times it's easier just to trim off the bottom. So let's see. If there's a lot of zipper tape, we might not be able to ease it. So I'm going to try it this way. If it works, then I'm going to fix the other side. But don't be afraid to, try different things, see what works best for you. So I'm just moving it because for me right here, I'm like, all right, let me see how this looks to try to ease this in. It might work. This is where the zipper tape gets a little bit wrinkly. So in this case, I would much rather clip from the top, and then if I have extra, just trim it off after. I'd rather have that trimmed than wrinkles in my zipper tape. So I'm going to take my time, get this all clipped nicely, so I don't have wrinkles, and I'll come back to tell you what we're going to do. Okay, so I've clipped down both sides. If I turn it from the front, you can see that my center pocket piece is about 1/8 to 1/4 inch longer. I'm not worrying about that. I'm going to trim that off later. I'd rather trim this now, or trim it after I sew it, than try to ease that zipper tape in that I was talking about. But in order to sew this, we want to sew from the back. And it's a little bit tricky because, again, it's a gusset because of the shape. So when I bring it to the machine, I am folding this underneath, so I am not accidentally stitching through both the edge and the front. I'm putting on a zipper tape or a zipper foot and using my full seam allowance. And I'm going to start on this, this right-hand side and kind of work my way up around. And you're going to see I'm going to have to maneuver my machine almost like as if I had a cylinder arm. I guess it would be easier, but I'm going to do it on obviously a flatbed. So we are again going to start here, sew along that zipper tape and moving your pattern coming down on the other side. Again, the regular seam allowance or full seam allowance. In a regular stitch, you don't want to base stitch this because we're not going back over it. And make sure that you are folding your exterior so you don't accidentally sew through it. Just take your time, do not stress, slow and steady, and it will come out great. Okay, so I have just sewed all the way around. This is what it looks like from the back. I definitely recommend flipping it over. Definitely look at your zipper. Make sure it is caught all the way. If you have any wrinkles, you want to fix them. If you want to unpick it, mine looks great. There's no wrinkles. So even though I didn't put those little snips into the zipper tape, because I really took my time and adjusted as I was sewing, it is possible to get no wrinkles without snipping into your zipper. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to flip this so the exterior of the back side of the exterior is facing us. We see the back of our pocket, so we can see our slip pocket. Now we need our card slot piece. And if you haven't already, mark your bottom center and your top center. As I said here, it's a little bit longer on each side. I'm not doing anything with that yet. So I'm going to flip it back over. And we also did not top stitch this. That's very important. Do not top stitch this because we have to add this pocket on. So I'm going to take my center mark. I'm putting it right side facing down. So our card slots should be against this slip pocket. And I'm lining up my center top to the center of our zipper. You should be able to still see the marking. And again, this is where we are going to clip again down the sides. So you can clip the top, line up the center of your bottom pocket. So you can see that my pocket here is a little bit shorter. And that makes sense because it's lined up with the exterior sides here. I can trim this part off later. So I'm not worried about this little blue here. I'm making sure that my edges of my card slot pocket are even with the bottom of this exterior fabric. And I'm going to put a clip in each spot. Actually, I should do it this way to hold that. So now that I have the bottom clip and the top, now I can work my way around the rest of the zipper. And again, this is a spot where we might get a wrinkle in a zipper. So I definitely want to be mindful and take my time as I am clipping this together and easing it in. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna be at these top corners. So you might even be able to staple this and pull out the staples later. I don't tend to staple my gussets and stuff. I think that becomes from being a teacher and just not wanting to have to deal with staples and staple removers. But whatever is easiest for you, whatever works for you. Some people even like hand-based their gussets. So once you have this clipped, we're going to take it to our machine. And this time we want to start with our exterior right side facing up, and I'm going to fold it in this way. And what we're going to do is we have our stitch line here already. You want to go over that stitch line or slightly to the left of it. If you do not go slightly to the left or go over it, you may see these stitches on the inside of your pocket. I don't think it's a huge deal, but you definitely want to at least try to go over it or to the left of it. So we are going to stitch all the way around. When we get to the top, we'll fold this part in, keep going, and go all the way around. And so when I get to these corners, that's where I'm going to be really mindful of my zipper tape again, because this could be where it creates a wrinkle. I'm also going to use my stiletto if needed. So I have just stitched all the way around, took my time, pulled the exterior out of the way. So the first thing I want to do is check and make sure that it caught and that my zipper looks okay. And I do not have any wrinkles, so I'm really happy about that. And something I want to show you is the back side. So if I'm looking at the back side, you can see here, my fabric shifted a little bit. My back pocket, it's not even with the zipper tape, but I didn't stress about it. I just kept going. So this is another example of, in bag making, we can be off a tiny bit in certain circumstances and it still be fine. So if this happens to you, don't stress out. Like, your bag is not ruined. As long as you caught the zipper tape, and we did, it's fine from the front. And we open up the pocket, and it's fine here too. You can double check on that side, make sure you got everything. So it's perfectly fine. No one will have any idea that this was off a tiny bit on the back. So I think that's something that happens with this pattern a lot, and people get discouraged and think like they've really messed up, and they haven't. Like, it's going to come together just beautiful. All right, so now that that is attached, and if we fold back our pocket, we see our card slots, our slip pocket, everything looks good. But like I was talking about, my bottom here is just a little bit longer than my sides. So I'm just real quick going to trim that. And what I'm doing is I'm just lining up my the edges with a certain marking. Like, you can use any marking. I'm not using any particular measurement. I'm just using to help me keep this flat, because this is kind of a little bit thick. So just make sure that it is straight. And I am going to, I might have to go over it with a pair of scissors, like I said, because it is so thick. But that got through most of the way. Just going to use my scissors to get through that one area that's really bulky. It's really hard trying to do this. I might have to pull this closer to myself. Sorry about that, if you can't see in the video right now while I'm trying to trim in. Okay, perfect. So now that it is straight, what we're going to do is, if you can iron your material, definitely iron it. Now we can top stitch all the way around. So again, I'm going to start here on the right, if it's upside down on the right, and go all the way around, pulling my zipper like this as I go. And we want to top stitch now, because had we done it before, we wouldn't have been able to sew that back pocket on. And we are going to top stitch, but we're also going to close this bottom pocket seam, which is why I trimmed it even first. All right, so we have added our pocket on the back. So now when we open this up, we have our full exterior pocket with the slip pocket and card slots, and then the slip pocket on this side. So I'm really happy with how it looks. I took my time. There's no wrinkles in the zipper. So now we are going to take this and just put it right side together. And we are just going to sew along this seam at the seam allowance given in the pattern. It's a little bit poofy because I am using the fusible fleece on it. So depending on what interfacing you chose will make it easier or more difficult. My machine can go through this with no problem. I believe most domestics can. It just makes it a little bit puffy. If that's a problem, you could leave it out of the seam allowance or trim it out. So I'm going to take that to the machine and sew along this edge here at the given seam allowance in the pattern. All right, so I have just sewed along that seam. If you have a material that you can iron, it helps to press this. I'm gonna try a piece first to see how it works of double-sided tape to see if it holds it. I do not like having to press vinyl water-resistant canvas. Anything that is plastic, I avoid it as much as necessary. So if this works, I'm gonna use this. So we'll just test it on a small piece. I'm having trouble. There we go. Getting. All right. So that seems to be holding. So this is something you can do. You can press it. You can not. It just makes everything sit better. So I'm going to run some more double-sided tape across the seam off camera just so I don't take up a whole bunch of time. The one thing I want to show you on camera first is we need our center points. So I have already marked my center, and you should too on your pocket over here. It's silver, so I'm just doing it in blue so I can see it a little bit better. And we are lining up this center seam with the center of that pocket. And it's because we have a round bottom. I'm just going to put a clip here to help me hold it in place to mark. Because we are going to have to line up center points. So making sure that you find the 4 centers. So I'm coming to this edge and marking it, and this edge here. Because when we add this bottom gusset, it's very similar to if you sew clothes, like putting in a neckband where you have to mark the 4 quarters and stretch it if you're using like a knit fabric. So it's going to be the same idea with this bottom. So off camera, I am going to put the double-sided tape in. I've already marked my 4 points, and then I'll come back on and show you what we're doing next. All right, so off camera, I have put some double-sided tape. Now we need our exterior bottom, and just like we've marked the 4 centers of our bottom of this piece here, we're going to do that for the exterior base. And how I'm doing that is I'm just folding it in half. I put a layer of that fusible fleece over some Peltex, so it does give it some stiffness. So I marked those 2 center lines, and now I am going to fold those 2 together to find the other 2 centers. And I just like showing all this stuff on camera because when I was first learning, it was things I didn't think about or know how to do. And I know a lot of people find this base kind of difficult because it is, in the round. But to me, it's just so worth it. I prefer the original over any of the hacked versions. So the other thing that I want to do before I clip it is I'm going to put some snips. And that's why I wrote with a marker. Because if you mark your quarters with like a little snip, it might blend in. So I'm going to put some snips around the base. It's a little bit thick here, so where the pockets are depending on your materials. So I'm just doing the best that I can. These snips are going to help the base fit a little bit better and just like conform to the shape. So definitely put them in, but you double check your seam allowance. It's in the pattern. If you snip too far, it'll be a problem. So you don't want to put these snips any longer than your seam allowance. And I'm just going around. You could, sometimes depending on what I'm using, pinking shears can sometimes work. So you don't need a bunch, just enough to see. So as we fold this, it's going to like flex. So now what we need to do is line up our center points of our base with the center of the bags that we've already marked. So I'm just, I guess if you have directional, this is on the bottom, so I don't really think it matters exactly which way. So I'm just marking up, I personally clip my 4 center pieces first, my center marks. So for this one, it is the center of that seam. And that's why I wanted to make sure my seam was laying flat. And now I'm doing the same over here. And it's like once you get your markings, and I used a blue water soluble marker. I am like a little kid. It gets all over my fingers with this particular one. But it's my favorite because it is water soluble, so it comes out of most things. I did have it stay in like seatbelt webbing. So definitely test it first. So once you get your 4 clips in, now you can go back through and clip the rest of your base and the bottom. And it should fit nice and snug. That's why we put those little snips in to help. I also find that it's the bottom. It's very forgiving. If I get a little wrinkle, I honestly don't worry about it too much because it's the bottom and people don't see it. As sewists, we're our own worst critics, and other people are not even going to think twice about a tiny wrinkle. So I just clip this the best that I can all the way around, and then I'm going to pop back on right before I sew it. Okay, so I have clipped all the way around. I did not perfectly like center my base, but if you perfectly centered your interfacing on the base, it should fit within that seam allowance. So this is going to depend on personal preference. You could sew it like this with the foot, which I think is what I'm going to try, have the foot sit inside. You could sew it like this where it sits out. If you have like a cylinder arm or can pull the arm off, you might want to sew on the top and in the round. So definitely you're going to find, you know, what works for best for you and your machine and your setup. This is another thing. If you want to like hand base this or use staples, that would be really helpful. I don't usually use staples at all. I hate pulling them out, so I try to avoid them. So I'm just going to sew with all the clips as best as I can. I'm going to use my stiletto. It does get a little thick here where the pocket is. So if I need to, I will hand crank over that. Just take your time and try not to stress too much because, like I said, with this bag, it's really forgiving. So I'm going to take it to the machine, use the full seam allowance in the pattern. Okay, so we can see here that, you know, my seam allowance is not perfect. It's shifted a little bit, but I'm not worried about that. It may look fine. So what you can do is once you have your bottom sewn, as long as it's secure, if it wobbles a little bit, I literally don't stress it. Because it's usually not noticeable, as like I said, as long as the base is secure. So go ahead and turn it right side facing out. And now it's getting a little bit stiff because I have all the materials with the pocket the base. So if you need to, heat it up, and if you're using like a vinyl or waterproof canvas, and then just check out your bottom. So it's not, mine is not perfectly circular. I mean, this is also not like completely pushed out, just to show you real quick. But there's no, my biggest thing is like, I look to see if there's like a wrinkle, and there's no wrinkles. This right here might not push out, or might not push out as easy, because this is where our pocket is. So between the zippers here are like the thickest seams. So I'm going to go in with a blow dryer and just use my fingers and push them out more. I'm just looking for, are any of the stitches look questionable? Did I miss any spot? Is there like a gap? Is there a really bad wrinkle that I'm not happy with? And overall, like, I think this is fine. So that's why I really love this original pattern. And I know that people get really intimidated by this bottom piece, but it is very, very forgiving. So, all right, so I'm going to set that to the side, and we are going to do a similar thing with our lining piece. Okay, so for our lining, I am just putting it right sides together. The only difference is with this, we are not sewing all the way down this seam. We actually turn our bag through the lining. So I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to sew at the given seam allowance a couple inches in. I'm going to leave a turning gap. So probably at least 5 inches. You want to leave enough depending on the materials that you know you can get it through that opening. And then I'm going to continue stitching up through the top. Okay, so I have just sewed along the side here and left a turning hole. So you can, again, press this open or use double-sided tape. I'm probably going to use double-sided tape again, but before they do that, I want to mark my 4 centers. So I just have it lying flat like this. So I'm holding it and then marking over here, and then matching that line to that center seam. Again, I'm just going to clip it in place just because it makes it easier to mark. And you're going to want to repeat the same process for your base. And this is like, because I'm using ripstop, it's like super slippery. I did not interface it at all. So we'll see how it goes once I start actually sewing this. I might have to play around with my tension a little bit. But also it's the lining. And again, I don't stress so much about the lining because it is hidden. So I'm not going to put the double-sided tape for the seams yet. So again, my right side is hard to see because it looks identical. My right side is still facing in, and I'm putting my base right side facing in. And again, I'm lining up that center seam to my center mark on the base, clipping it, and repeating the process. You can put your clips into the side again, the little snips. I haven't done that yet, so I'll just do that. So actually, it's the same exact process. So I'm going to do the snips and clipping it in time lapse. Okay, so now that I have it clipped all the way around, I am going to take it to the machine. In the pattern, she recommends sewing it standing up, and I am going to try that as well, just because this is so flimsy. And again, this is the lining, so I'm not really stressing about how that is going to really look. I mean, I'm going to do my best, but if there's a little wrinkle or something, no one's going to see it. It is literally shoved down into the bottom of the bag. All right, so I have just finished sewing along the base, and it's pretty good. Again, you can see where it moves a little bit, but I'm not going to stress it. I'm going to turn it and see if it looks okay. I did put some double-sided tape here just to hold the seam allowance open, but I did not put it where like my opening is to turn. So I'm just going to turn this right side out. And you can see that there's not really any wrinkles, and I'm pretty happy with how the base looks, especially with this ripstop. It's super forgiving, and again, like technically this is going to sit inside of your bag like this. So no one is really looking way deep into your bag. So again, I'm gonna turn it right side out and then set it to the side because we are gonna move on to our D-ring connectors. Okay, so for D-rings, you can make the connectors as written in the pattern. I am using this orange seatbelt webbing. I like it because it's thin, and also I don't have to now fold fabric and make my own D-ring connectors. So I am just putting them around the D-ring, and I'm going to put a clip. You could either rivet them or sew a line across. I'm going to sew a line across, and that just helps it so your D-ring doesn't like flip around. Sewing a line as close to this bar as possible will help keep that in place. So that is what I'm going to do. You can switch out to like a zipper foot or whatever works best for you. So I'm going to take that to the machine and just sew a line of top stitching across both of these. All right, so I have just sewed a line of top stitching across both of my D-rings, and I grabbed my exterior part of the bag. Now we need to attach it. So we are going to put them with the D-ring facing down. I usually just like eyeball the center. You can find the center here and the center of your D-ring. And then there is a given measurement down that you want like sticking out. Again, I'm going to eyeball it. I'll double check it off camera because I don't want to use a ruler. And so I'm going to do this for both sides. And then we're going to take this to the machine and base stitch it into place. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself, we're going to have to stitch the around here. So if you have thick hardware like I do, definitely be mindful of that you are giving yourself space in this seam allowance along the top and the two edges here. So again, I'm going to check it off camera, then bring it to the machine and just base stitch both of these into place. Okay, so I have just base stitched my D-rings on both sides. And now to put this together, we are going to have to turn this right side facing out. Wrong side's facing out. So I'm turning that back in. And again, if it's hard to turn, just use a blow dryer or something to soften up your materials. And now we need our lining. Our lining should be right side facing out. And we are going to stick that inside of our exterior piece, and our seams are going to be on opposite sides, so that way it is not bulking up. So since this seam is on top, I'm going to put the opening towards the bottom where the pocket is, and I did not mark my centers on the top of my lining. I probably should have. So if you've marked your centers, go ahead and line them up. This should match up perfectly. So honestly, what I do is clip where the D-ring tabs are first, and then I'll clip the rest. Okay, so once I have one side, this should align like exact. As long as you followed the seam allowances given and were accurate, you shouldn't have any extra material, any wrinkles. Whatever way this is easiest for you to clip. Sometimes I have to bring them close to me or lay them down like I'm doing now. If you're having trouble, it's not lining up correctly, I would take them apart and find your centers really quick of both the exterior and the interior, and then clip them. That will help you ease in any extra material. All right, so now I'm going to take this to the machine and we are going to sew all the way around the top, given the seam allowance. You might want to just like backstitch over once or twice on the D-rings just to extra give it a little bit more security. And you're not leaving a turning hole. We already have that turning hole in our lining, so we are sewing all the way around at the given seam allowance in the pattern. Okay, so we just sewed all the way around the top. I only caught part of it in time lapse because I didn't realize I didn't hit record. So now you can take pinking shears and trim down your seam allowance. I do not have them, so I'm just using my regular scissors. The pinking shears are because this is a curve and it will just help it sit a little bit nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim down the seam allowance and then just put some snips into it, just like what we did when we added the base. This will help it again, so it just curves nicely. The only thing that you definitely do not want to trim down is where your D-ring tab is. Especially if you're using webbing, you don't want that to fray. You don't want that to become like a point of weakness at all. Okay, and so I'm going to do the rest of the snips off camera and then I'll come back on to turn it out. Okay, so I have just put some snips into it and trimmed down the seam allowance. So now you are going to reach inside to where that turning hole is and turn your bag through. Again, I'm going to try to grab where that pocket is first because that is definitely my most difficult piece. I have multiple layers of the water resistant canvas and waterproof canvas that I use for the card slots. So just take your time. You don't want to bust your seam or anything, especially after all the hard work you've done. So So I turned most of it in time lapse. I just want to come on to show you because we want to make sure we really poke out the corners where that D-ring connector is. So I'm just using a chopstick to help poke them out. But whatever tool you use, just make sure it's not going to pop through and bust open your seams. But you still want it to be, you know, completely turned out so everything looks nice. Because once we seal this up, we cannot get back to it anymore. And so the same thing with like the bottom. If you really want to push this out more, now's the time because you can stick your arm right through that opening. Once you have it all turned out and it looks okay, we need to seal this up. So the best way is, or the most hidden way would be to hand stitch it. I just machine sew it. It's again inside the bag. I hate hand stitching anything. So whatever works best for you. If you want to hand stitch with a ladder stitch, machine sew it, do what works best. So for me, I'm going to bring it to the machine and just do a stitch about 1/8 inch away, as close to the edge as I possibly can but enough to turn or close up that turning hole. All right, so I have just stitch closed our turning hole. So now I am tucking that inside of the bag, and it should fit perfect. Okay, and so once you have it all the way in, you are going to take the time and really line up the edge, because our very last step is we need to top stitch this closed. So I am just making sure I'm pushing my seam allowance evenly, pushing it towards the back. You can roll it between your fingers if you need to. Sometimes with bags, I don't seal up the lining yet in case I need to reach in and adjust. This one is not really the case for that. So again, I'm just going to clip all the way around. I prefer clipping because that helps me set up for, I believe, a really nice top stitch, kind of holding it in place instead of it shifting once I get to the machine. So I'm going to continue clipping all the way around the top. All right, so now I'm going to take this to the machine and I am going to top stitch all the way around the top. You can do it however works best. I think I'm going to pull off the arm and try to top stitch with the arm inside. I'm going to try to be as mindful I can so this does not wrinkle, but this is so silky and moving. So I'm just going to do the best I can as far as the lining and really focus on the outside top stitching looking nice. All right, I just realized I completely top stitched this and didn't press play for the time lapse. So I just wanted to show you, I took off the arm from my sewing machine and I sewed from the top, just carefully maneuvering it all the way around, sewing in the round. If I needed to adjust the bag at any point, I made sure that my needle was down inside the fabric and then turned the bag. That way my stitches weren't going in a different direction. That having that needle through the fabric helps hold it into place. So I'm sorry about that I didn't catch it in time lapse. But hopefully that's helpful to see it, like at least what I did with the machine. If you have a flatbed, you might put this like vertically. Some people even turn it right side facing or wrong side facing out and sew from the inside. So whatever works best for you and your machine and the materials that you're using. All right, so I have finished top stitching all the way around. I just backstitch at the beginning and the end. I did it kind of right here, and you almost can't even see that that's where it was. You can also hide your threads between if you really wanted. The inside looks pretty good. It didn't really wrinkle. Plus that rip stop is so like moving a lot. It's very, very forgiving. So I'm really, really happy with how that top stitch turned out. And so now the last thing is to finish my strap. Okay, so we have finished up our bag. So now we're on to our last step, which is our strap. I'm doing mine different in the pattern because I want to make it like a two-toned strap. So the top is going to be out of the water resistant canvas, and I'm also going to use the webbing. So I have cut my strap to 60 inches. That is my preferred length of a crossbody strap. And I find that it accommodates a lot of people. So in order to make the two-toned, I'm not doing this the four-fold method. I'm only folding to the center. So I have put a line on the center, and I'm going to use double-sided tape just to fold my edges in. My machine does not like double-sided tape, but because this is two-toned, if I put that double-sided tape right against the center line there, it's not going to be in my seam allowance. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm not using zipper ends, and I don't want like a raw edge because this is water resistant fabric. It could possibly fray, and I just don't want a raw edge of webbing. I think it looks better folded under. So I am going to fold in my edge. You can measure them out. Honestly, I just fold it in, like eyeball it. But what I'm going to do for the rest of the strap is fold each side into that center line. So I'm just going to show you a little bit real quick on the video and then come back on. Sometimes the double-sided tape, trying to get the paper off, takes forever. All right, so there we go. So I am just going to fold this in to that center line for my entire strap. So I'm going to do that off camera and come back once I have it completely folded on both sides. All right, so I ran out of double-sided tape, so I have just clipped it for now. So in order to make the double-sided strap, normally I just line up edge to edge and clip them together and top stitch down and around. But I'm not using zipper ends, and I mean strap ends, and I don't want this raw edge to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start it a little bit lower and top stitch. I cut the webbing slightly shorter, so that way afterwards I can fold this over the end, and it will encase that webbing. You can also make your own like fabric strap ends as well, or do this any variety of ways. And I also ran out of double-sided tape, so I need to definitely order more. My favorite is the kind that I have on my Amazon list. And so what I'm doing is I'm just clipping this down the center. Normally, if I had double-sided tape, I would just run a piece down my webbing and have that hold it in place. Because I don't have any more, I am going to have to clip it. So I'm going to clip all the way the rest down the strap. Okay, so now that I have clipped all the way down, holding the strap into place, I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch down each side. If you have problem with straps twisting on you, you want to make sure that you like sew one side and then start at the top and sew the same direction. I have not really had that happen to me, so I am just going to basically form an entire box, like come down one side, turn it around, and come down the other. So that's going to top stitch and hold these in place against each other. And because I'm clipping, it might move a little bit. So I'm just going to try to keep it as centered as possible as I'm sewing.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste.
Okay, so as I was doing this strap, something is off. I don't know if you can see in the video. The tension is creating these little bumps. And so there's definitely little loops. So I thought it was the tension. I completely rethreaded. I picked out this entire line of stitching and then tested it on a new, took out the bobbin, took out the thread, rethread, tested it on a new piece. It worked fine. And then did the stitching again, and it's creating those bubbles still. So I think it is definitely something with the material, the combination of this, maybe this particular webbing, like the weave of it. Because I've done this double-sided strap before with different webbing, but not this particular orange one. So if I were making like a crossbody, I would just put it over my slider like this, and then, fold over like normal. That's what I was going to do. But I don't feel comfortable using this because I've already tried to fix it. It's still creating the same problem. So I am just going to scrap that idea and use plain solid webbing without that double-sided strap. So I'm going to show you still how to make that strap. And this is nylon, so I'm just sealing the edges so they don't fray. And the only other difference is with that two-sided strap, I was going to use the slider that has the movable bar because it was thicker. Because I'm using just the seatbelt webbing, this fixed slider works better with just seatbelt webbing, and then it doesn't tend to slide as you're wearing it. So to make my crossbody, I'm going up and over that center bar like this, and then folding it back on itself. And I am going to tuck this raw edge under so it is not visible. So once you have it like this, it should be up and over and then folded onto itself. I'm right-handed, so I always just do it from the left to right. So I'm going to take this to the machine and put a line of top stitching across. I like to do 2 lines. You could top stitch across, you could rivet, whatever works best for you, but I am going to stitch. I'm going to take that to the machine and just stitch across. So now that I have my slider on and it is stitched across, I want to make sure that my strap is straight. So I'm just kind of pulling till the end, and I am going to put on one of my snap hooks. And then I'm going to come from the right hand side this time and go up and over that center bar. And if you pull it, you just want to double check. You don't want your strap to be twisted. So just pull it enough to make sure that this snap hook is on. You can see that where we folded it under is kind of hidden. And so now we just have our last snap hook. So I'm going over the top just to keep it, making sure that if I were to put it like this and fold it back, then my strap would be not twisted, but I have one side facing up and one side facing down. So I'm coming over the top of this snap hook. And just like we did for that center bar, I'm going to fold it under and I'm going to take it to the machine, and I am going to do 2 lines of stitching across. Okay, so I have just sewed my lines of stitching. So now my crossbody strap is done. I'm okay that it's just webbing. I love using webbing. That double strap does give that pop of color, but I think the full orange looks great as well since it matches the lining and the orange in the print. So just snap that on, and now that completes our bag. All right, so we have just finished up our bag. I love how it came out. This was my first time using ripstop as a liner. Usually I use a waterproof or water-resistant canvas, and I just love how it turned out. Super happy. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Please let me know in the comments if you do. Thank you again to Linds for allowing me to feature your pattern on my channel. Like I said, it is one of my favorites, and I'm so grateful to be able to sew it up and feature it. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.